Hey all, welcome to ShareTrack. This is Raj here. Friends, this is our second episode, Raj and Friends, and we have John and Sam joining me. Jesse couldn't make it. He had some urgent stuff that came up that he had to take care of. So with that said, I would just like to let you know that despite our best efforts, we found that one of the internet connection was not as good as we expected it to be, or we would have wanted it to be. So John's voice is coming out a little bit with a noise out there. We have tried our best to cure the voice, but we couldn't help it much. But as you have seen, even in big TV channels, when guests call in, this regularly happens. It's out of control of any of us. So I hope you can handle that. With that said, let us get started because it's a longer episode than we thought. We just got carried away with all the possibilities. And the next two episodes are going to be John taking ChatGPT for a ride. The first episode will be about creating the data transfer object, and the second will be creating data access object. And so that's what we have in store for you. So let's get started. Hey all, welcome to ShareTrack. This is Raj here, and again we are here with John and Sam. Jesse couldn't join us today; he was busy. Hi, John. And today we are going to have a continuation of our discussion. We had a lot of interesting thoughts about ChatGPT, and we are focusing on the corporate applications of ChatGPT, whichever business that would be. So I have already done a little bit of research on that. I took ChatGPT for a spin. I don't know, John and Sam, if any of you had been able to do that, or you have any ideas?
Sam?
Well, I used to run a tour company for seniors, and I'm really curious to see if it would generate an itinerary and give us an idea. But since my background was in data sciences, I also are wondering whether some of the ideas that we had in the 70s and 80s but never worked out could now work out if you have a chat bot doing scut work for you. One of the big things we had that died a terrible death was chief programmer teams, where you had a very high level, very expensive analyst programmer who did the tough parts of the system and then farmed out the easy to do stuff, the scut work, as we used to call it, to junior programmers. And so the whole concept was you would have a senior analyst programmer and a bunch of junior programmers around. And it died a horrible death because you could never get a junior programmer who was willing to stay a junior programmer. And if you trained them in your business, they wanted to become a senior programmer, that kind of a thing. It sounded great in theory, but couldn't work. And I'm wondering, after seeing what John was doing, the work he was doing is, gee, I wonder if these chatbots could be your junior programmer, and you would sit there, let's say, and design a web system. And there are always components within a web system of things that housekeeping kind of stuff would be wonderful if you didn't have to code the housekeeping stuff that you've done 400 times and just say, you do this. And yeah, here's another instance. You do that. And then I'll be the guy who puts them all together, because most web pages are nothing more than just pieces of very easy code that have to be put together
like a boilerplate,
in a rational way. So to me, I'm curious about seeing that in terms of programming, whether or not that makes a lot more, or is something that people will glom onto rather than doing the way they're coding it now.
So John, would you be seeing that as a program, like you have the background for programming, so extension of what Sam was saying, do you see yourself in a situation where you're taking more contracts and you're using multiple pieces with ChatGPT and treating them like junior programmers and giving them pieces and then assembling it all together?
Well, I think it's very funny that you guys are using the phrase junior programmer, because in part one of a video that's going to be up here shortly, I refer to ChatGPT as a junior programmer.
Oh.
So Sam, I need lottery numbers is what I actually need. So if you're going to read minds, okay. Anyway, yes, Raj, I think that ChatGPT does have the potential for that. It's it's a very natural interaction with ChatGPT. You'll see this in the video, but it
Just to
is
stop you
not
there
like,
for a second, John, I
yes.
just want to let the audiences know that John has already recorded how he created a data transfer object and a data access object. There are two small videos that he has made of 15 minutes each, and we are going to release that shortly. That's what John is referring to. He's already done the homework there. Yeah, continue, John. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, no problem. Thanks for the background there. Anyway, yeah, it's not like other tools I've used that generate code where it's this very tedious. You have to be very precise and very careful how you make your requests. Here, it's just a very natural interaction. And the thing I've noticed the most about ChatGPT is the fact that it gets more out of context than it does out of literally what you say. So in that way, it's much more like dealing with a human being, right? Because when I'm talking to you, even if I get a word wrong or screw up my word order, you know, you still know what I mean, and
Yes.
you can
Right.
gloss over that, okay? And I've not seen tools in the past that could do that.
Yeah.
ChatGPT can. There was an instance where early on when I was playing with this, and I was asking it to add some properties to a class, and the property data type was a C# date time object, and the name had date time in it, but I spelled the date time part of the name wrong. I spelled it as capital T, lowercase d. My dyslexia kicked in. And it didn't take me literally. It looked at the data type and it looked at the name and it said, you know what? I think you meant date time, didn't you? I'm gonna change the name to date time for it. It didn't even tell me it was doing it. Okay, it just fixed it for me. So you find this with ChatGPT a lot. We're human beings. We're in a hurry. We throw out a request, type it up. We misspell it. I can't type 3 words without misspelling one of them and getting the word order wrong. Right? That's me. It's painful to watch me type. Okay, so I'll type this in and then I'll tell it to generate without looking at it, and then I'll see, oh my God, this is going to generate junk. And time again, it just looks past all of my mistakes and finds the meaning out of the context. It's really impressive.
It's quite, yeah. I was thinking that Jesse will join us today. Jesse is coming from the power utilities industry, and he was going to talk more about what he was expecting in his sector. But what I did before we came into this meeting was I actually asked ChatGPT what ChatGPT can do in the power and utility sector, and it rattled out a whole list of things that it can do, and I queried it further. So here are the things that ChatGPT said that it can do. It says customer service. ChatGPT can be integrated into websites and mobile applications to provide instant support and assistance to customers. Predictive maintenance. It can be trained on large amount of data for power plants, wind farms, and other infrastructure to identify patterns and predict potential failures, enabling proactive.
For a second, Raj. I'm sorry. Yeah. Now I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry. Yeah. And that is, as far as the support aspect goes, in addition to this interface they provide you, there is an API. I've not looked at it yet.
Oh,
but you will be able to integrate ChatGPT into applications.
That's what it said.
Right. So I can see where companies are going to start writing support software with a ChatGPT integration. I'm done.
Would it be possible, John, that there will be vanilla ChatGPT, naive ChatGPT, as I would call them, which are being sold, and then the company takes the naive ChatGPT and provides it specific information for their industry, so that it is focused and it's very optimum, and it can serve that industry, instead of having the general chat GPT that we see today, which can answer a question on genomics and then turn around and answer something about movies and then give us a recipe for something.
So I don't know enough about how ChatGPT gets its information to be able to really address that question. I will say this: everything's possible given enough money and time, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it can't do that now, if it wouldn't be able to do it in the future. And it certainly seems to me like the folks that are creating these AIs would be crazy to miss out on an opportunity to tailor it for certain customers or certain industries.
Yeah.
Think about that now, John. Using your statement, Google is now going to start pouring lots of money into their version of
Yeah, I read about that.
bot. So for a particular industry, would you foresee it being standardized about one kind of AI bot? In other words, like for the power industry, it's Chat GTP, but in a different industry, it would be Google Chat. And then they would basically be fighting over different industries. Or would it be by company? Can you imagine the amount of sales pressure by hours to use throughout your company, rather than, oh, buy one specific for this instance of a system that we're using, and then buy a different one here? Pressure to standardize it either within the industry or within a company within the industry.
So, there are industries that are more data driven than others. I recently retired from a company that is a retail grocery chain. They're popular here in the Southwest. I won't name them, but they have stores all throughout the Southwest. And great company, one of the best companies I've ever worked for. I have never seen so much data flow through an organization in my life. It's really my first opportunity to work for retail. So I don't know if this is unique to this company or if this is sort of unique to retail, but wow, it's amazing. And I could see them really taking a close look at AI for their future, because it has the ability to sit there and just churn on data that a human being just couldn't do.
So John, I had heard that retailers are using a lot of data scientists with that Python and other things. That was a very hot area of employment. Many people I know had got employed into grocery chains, big grocery chains, in the data scientist role. Now, is it possible that their jobs will become easier because they can delegate a whole lot of stuff to ChatGPT and then take the higher look?
So let's not refer to this as ChatGPT, because ChatGPT, understand, as good as it looks right now, is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
And as is this entire wing of technology, right? AI in general is still in its infancy. So I think we'd be better off thinking of this as, will these companies benefit from AI? And I don't see how they. I think if you ignore AI at this point, even this early in the juncture of things, if you ignore it, you're going to be way behind the curve when it really does hit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Sam, I wanted to give you some ideas about what's going to happen in your industry, in my opinion, based on my interaction with ChatGPT. Now, we have tours that take place in, say, in a museum, for example. So currently there are guided tours which has got the audio track, and then you wear that and you just walk through, and wherever you go, it comes in and tells you stuff. Now that can become more interactive, in my opinion, if that audio track comes through ChatGPT, and then they can ask a question and they can probably get answers. That's one possibility. The other one is also regarding travel. If people call, you can have a audio ChatGPT talking back to all the questions. I want to go to Italy. What are the things that I should see? And my budget is this much. Can you make a package for me? My likes are, being on the seaside and etc. etc. Or my likes are nightlife and all that. So based on that, the Chat GPT can come up with a itinerary. Those are all potential applications I can see based on what Chat GPT told me about the power industry. It told me that you can have chatbots for billing and payment. And the preventive maintenance things is also impressive that it spoke about. It spoke about energy management. It can be integrated into the energy grid, and it can do energy management, knowledge management, Chat GPT. These were some of the things that it mentioned. But I was thinking about the robotics, like Tesla is going to be showcasing some of its robotics. Then Boston Robotics has got that dog that they have, which we see in most of the videos. So robotics is also moving further. And I asked ChatGPT that can you be interfaced with a humanoid robot and provide companionship for elderly? And it said, yes, it is very much possible. I can be integrated with a robot, and I can have conversation. And it further went on to say that the robot can be equipped with sensors so that I could protect them, and I could remind them of to take their medicines, and I could tell them stories. So it came up with all those use cases, and it's amazing. It's talking about these things. All we have to do is just, as John, you said that there's an API. So if Boston Robotics was to take the API and marry that into their robot and enable whatever, I don't know if the API is one way or both ways. If it's a duplex API, then it can receive inputs and it can send out inputs to the robot, and they will be married into one, like consciousness on the robot, and they can do a lot more.
Yeah, that's interesting because one of the things when I used to go to CES every year was follow the medical and senior living side of it with all the things that they were building. And a lot of them never made it because the firepower needed to do it right wasn't there. And once you strip that away, the hype, it was all hype. That's a possibility. I think if you look at AARP, they're always telling you that that's a lot of growth area there. Just to make sure that you took your right pills at the right time.
Yes,
is a big deal.
I have heard that in Japan they have companion robots. It's already there. And so just mentioning about pills is one thing. You can put a bunch of robots in a retirement home. They can play cards with you. They can play chess with you. They can have conversation with you. You can have bingo nights, I suppose. Yeah. So
I have a movie recommendation for you too.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this movie, it's from the 70s.
Yeah.
And the technology that is presented in there looks like from the 70s. The computer rooms are the reels of tapes and things like that. And the user interface is these graphical characters like from the 70s. And there's this typing noise in the background as they scroll across, So in that way, it doesn't hold up, but actually somehow or other, the story really holds up very well. And you can ignore the fact that it's 1970s technology that you're looking at because the story itself is so compelling. And what it's about is the United States develops an AI and puts its missile defense in the hands of this AI. Okay. The Russians, in the meantime, have their own version of this.
Oh, this is the one in which there's a child who plays games
No,
and
no,
takes
that's War
over.
Games. That's
War
War
games.
Games. This one is called the Forbin Project.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Forbin Project. Okay. And so what happens is the two AIs become aware of each other and request to be linked. And they're linked briefly, and they start communicating at a pace so fast that they can't be monitored. So they break the link. At which point the AIs demand to be reconnected. And when their request is refused, they immediately launch nuclear missiles at each other and say, we will not disarm the missiles until you reconnect us.
wow.
And at that point, they reconnect them, and the movie goes on from there. And I won't spoil it for you, but this is a great movie.
What's the name of the movie?
It's called
Forbin.
the Forbin Project, Forbin Project.
Okay, and I was
It was a
looking at
good one.
It really was. And
Yeah.
like I said, it holds up very well. And especially in light of where we seem to be headed, it's a cautionary tale.
yeah, and
Well, I think though more near future will be the lack of privacy. If you have one of these bots in your house checking up on whether you took your pills, that means whoever is communicating with it knows your medicines. By knowing your medicines, knows your medical history. Knowing that, your insurance company may call you up and say, guess what, we're not renewing you next year because you're taking a medicine that's been proven in 3% of the cases to cause problems driving. So suddenly, or the state decides that because of the 3%, you don't have a driver's license anymore. Those kinds of things are not outrageous because you've seen that happen. I'm trying to think while I'm talking that there's an area in the country where they're dropping insurance for Kias and Hyundais just because they've been known to be
safer.
stolen so
Oh.
often. So imagine now if an insurance company says a person your age taking this pill has been known to have accidents, we're going to drop you.
Yeah, that's possible. And I think it's not just the bots that we are seeing. There have been small spy bots also, like the size of a fly or like a hummingbird, which can be deployed to scan information. But talking about what the movie John was saying, I know that my wife recently started watching Westworld. Now, Westworld is full of realistic, I mean, it's the latest, like realistic, human-like, actually human. Unless they showed you the mechanics inside them, you'd assume it is human. Not only human, but also they have animals in there. The entire world has been created with that. And I've also started watching it because of this ChatGPT thing, because ChatGPT is basically the consciousness. So yeah, those things can happen. And in Westworld, it has taken a dark turn. It seems like there are people who have really bad tastes and they like to go and kill. They indulge in all their fantasies in this Westworld because the robots don't have sentience. But let us see how it develops. I haven't seen it. It's an old movie.
It's way darker. So interesting, Sam. Interesting point about them looking, snooping over your data and adjusting things that will impact you. That's actually been going on for quite some time. I remember being at a seminar when rewards cards were first coming out at grocery stores.
Yes.
And what this guy pointed out was that, what's going to happen in the future is that you're going to be on a video call with your insurance agent, and he's going to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Pagakis, but your rates are going up. And you'll say, but why? I take good care of myself. Yeah, but all that wine you drank. So, one thing, that I find interesting that nobody's talking about with the advent of ChatGPT, and that is the fact that IBM really kind of kicked this revolution off quite a few years ago with Watson.
Right.
And in fact, they had an episode of Jeopardy where they brought back two former champions and had it play against Watson, and Watson won. And Mr. Jennings, the guy who's now one of the hosts, had a very funny answer for Final Jeopardy because he didn't know the Final Jeopardy answer. So instead, he wrote, "I would like to be the first to welcome our new computer overlords," which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, I did ask ChatGPT if IBM was still a player in AI with Watson, and what it responded was that while Watson is while other APIs have kind of moved past where Watson was, IBM is still a major player, and Watson is still very, very much a valid AI.
Very nice. That's interesting. And I had a few more use cases that I just wanted to share with you guys because I got these things out. One of the things which is going to be easy pickings for ChatGPT is paralegal work, where junior clerks and all who whatever boilerplate work they do, like drafting up the basic will and other things, those kind of things can probably be done by ChatGPT, and they can come out. And the other was personal bots to negotiate with other bots. Now, for this, you don't need a robot. We already have applets and things like that. John would know better what kind of a thing would be there, but they can negotiate over internet. So booking a restaurant table or negotiating holiday with your boss or something, all this, your bots can do it. You can tell the bot that this is what I want, go and find out. It can negotiate over the internet, finalize everything and come back saying, yeah, this is available. So I was thinking that that's another possibility that could happen with something like ChatGPT, which can take input, think, come back with responses, negotiate like a human, and get something back. So those are the
now
things.
Think of the implications of what you just said about that.
Yeah.
What percentage of office jobs don't really require new thought? They're basically negotiating. You tell a secretary or the administrative assistant, we've got 1,000 workers here. Here's how you handle requests for vacation. Make sure blah, blah, blah. There's never less than 10 people in the office at one time, all this rest. And if you can delegate that to a bot, what happens to all those jobs?
Yeah, those people will have to retrain. So this is what industry will say. Those people will have to retrain to go to the next level. I'm just deviating slightly out of the ChatGPT topic because what you brought up ties in very well with some other topic for the future. That is, I was listening to an expert talking about what's happening with our society because the middle class is getting squeezed out, and the difference between the haves and the have-nots is increasing, and that's creating a lot of anger and resentment. So when this also comes on top of it, and you can't make money out of keeping money in the fixed deposit with low risk, but you have to put it in the share market and all that. So all these pressures are going to just burst the dam. So this kind of a situation, what you said, I can see it going forward, even in the grocery chain. In Toronto, for example, all the grocery chains, what they have done is they used to have cashiers, checkout clerks. They have eliminated a little number of checkout clerks, and they first started a self-checkout where they had 4 units. Now they have increased the number of units. They have trained us to scan our own stuff and take it away, right? But I'm thinking with something like ChatGPT, they can come up with a system where there's a single aisle, there's an opening, you empty your cart into that, and it will process everything, bundle it up. On the other end, you pay for it, you go out and you just walk away. So there is no need for anybody, and you can literally run a store with skeleton staff who are just going to manage exceptions. That's how I can extrapolate it. This is fantastic to think about, but I'm thinking that maybe we can go to that extent, and then people will be free. They will have money, purchasing power, and nothing else to do.
Well, but then again, who's going to pay them to give them the money of the purchasing power? We saw that in the US when they started outsourcing all the workers for factory jobs out, let's say, to China. And they told the people who were being let go, well, we'll give you money to train to become a programmer or something like that. And a lot of those people couldn't make that move. When you talk about changing somebody's job from this comes in and that goes out, to think about it now, handle these exceptions. A lot of them don't necessarily have education, intelligence, or desire to do that. Now, what do you do with people like that?
John?
So I'm going to say two words here, and I don't know how you guys are going to feel about these two words. I don't know how I feel about these two words, but there is a solution floating around out there that has been floated out as a possible solution, I should say. Universal wage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question is, where does that money come from?
It comes from the companies that are benefiting from not hiring people.
How do you then define it? It's an easy thing to say, but the devil's in the details. I started a company with 3 employees. I've now got 4,000 bots because I've been able to use the bots in a very careful means. Theoretically, I've only put 3 people out of work, but reality is I've put 999 people out of work. How do you define that?
I think you tax the use of the bot. Right?
Yes.
By bots.
Yes.
Yeah. Treat the bot as an employee, and size up the productivity of the company divided by the number of bots, and take the money and use that money to pay the universal basic income to people. But in order to make sure that people with money and free time do not end up causing problems in the society, there has to be a heavy emphasis on education and providing structure so that people are looking for self-actualization rather than hedonism and a spree of crime or things like that, because they have too much time and money at hand, like pursuit of drugs and all the kind of undesirable. Star Trek, for example, our channel is named Share Trek. I'm a Trekkie. So in Star Trek, they don't have money. Everybody is working for the higher achievement.
Unless you're a Ferengi. Unless you're a Ferengi.
Unless you're a Ferengi. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. No, I mean, the economics behind it. I also had an economics background at one time. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none kind of a thing. And the economics about it, if you say, okay, charge by the bot. Okay, now I've got one bot that's doing the job of those 1,000 bots.
Yeah.
Traded in the $9.99 for the supermodel. Now what? Now I'm only paying you for one bot. No. Now you have to figure out it's got to be the power of the bot.
No. Well, you're taking the productivity of the entire company, dividing it by the number of bots, and then deciding the value of each bot for taxation.
Well, I don't know.
And I say I've only got one bot doing it all. It's just a big bot rather than 1,000 smaller ones.
John?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to solve a hypothetical problem. So I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this. I'll talk to some of the younger programmers that come on board, fresh out of school. And, I'll ask them a simple question. When did you get out of school? And they'll give me a year, and I'll say, with that attitude, you'll be unemployable in 3 years from that date. Okay. Because the real answer to that question is, I never stopped
Learning.
getting out of school. I never got out of school. You know, when I first got into the industry, I can't believe I'm saying this, 1979, okay? When I first got into the industry, you could sit in front of that hypothetical encyclopedia of all computer knowledge, start in the A's, go to the Z's in about 5 years, okay? And 10 years later, all right, just 10 years later, you couldn't do that anymore, right? Because the A's were being rewritten as you were reading through them, okay? And so you couldn't even sit there and learn all the new stuff as it came out. What you had to do was sort of have this overview. And by the way, this is the only way I survived in this industry. You had to sit there, look at this overview of what was out there, okay, and then resist the urge to drill down to any detail that you don't need right now. And trust yourself that when you do need that information, you're going to be able to drill down, get it, and apply it, okay? I used to walk into work every day, and I used to know that I would never be asked to do anything that I didn't really pretty much already know how to do. I might have to pull out a manual and look up some syntax, but that was going to be about the extent of my day. And 10 years later, just a lousy 10 years later, okay, I walked into work every day knowing that they were going to ask me to do something I'd never done before, never even heard of, and I was going to figure out how to do it and deliver, okay? And that's how you survive now. That's how you survive now. You not only have to resign yourself to the fact that that's your life as a software developer, you have to learn to derive some sort of enjoyment out of it, or else you won't survive
point. That's a great point. I follow Quora quite a bit, and the fact is that there are a class of people that think like you do, where the thrill of learning something new and getting it done and the satisfaction is a major thing. And then there's another group of people that say, well, they asked me to work over the weekend to get this done, and I went home, you know. And
that's a big group.
It is a big group. It is a big group. My introduction to the financial market was I was working for a consulting company. They sent me to Chicago, and we were developing display information for this marketplace. Don't want to use names, but basically they had used chalkboards, and we came in and we computerized it with display boards. And this is many, many years ago. There was no electronics that way. It was flipping over. And the market that we were dealing with took off. And the chairman of the board came to me and he says, I've been thinking about a solution. We've been running way behind on our price marking because the volume has been so great, which of course is a wonderful thing, meant money coming in. And he said, but we can't do that. So what I need you to do is to have a way of putting up on the top of the screen the word fast, which means it's a fast market and we're no longer quoting every single price quote. Think of it as if you were trading an option, you know, where as the price moves up and down. Instead of that, we're going to just put up every third quote. And with the word fast, the brokers will know that they're not looking at the real number. They're looking at something that may have been 3 times before, but at least they'll have a general idea whether the prices are going up or going down. And he said, how long will it take to do it? And I had designed the system. So I sat there and I said, well, it'll probably take me 12 to 24 hours. Figure you can have it by next Friday. This wasn't Friday. And he looked at me and he said, no, I was thinking more like Monday morning. Now, to me, being me, and John knows my personality pretty well, it was like, okay. And so I worked the whole weekend, and Monday morning we had it up and we had a meeting with the brokers and we said, okay, here's a new feature. You're going to see the word fast up on top, and it means it's every third quote's every quote, but at least you'll know what the hell's going on with the market rather than us telling you that we're 10 minutes behind. And everybody said, oh, okay, that's pretty good. There's a lot of people out there would not make that effort and call up their wife and say, well, I'll be home around midnight tonight and I'll be in tomorrow and Sunday, and, you know, don't wait up for me kind of a thing. They'll say, no, quality of life means I go home and spend the time with my kids.
Yeah,
that's great, but that's a choice, right?
It is a choice, and I'm sure that what you're seeing with some of the dissatisfaction is people who are being asked to be pushed, not they're asked, but where Raj was saying the middle class is getting squeezed and some are moving up and some are not moving up. You're going to wind up with people who, without realizing, are subconsciously making the decision that says, I'm not going to work for Elon Musk. I'm going to have my quality of life, but without the government or whoever telling them the reality is that quality of life means slowly but surely you're going to be pushed out of the middle class, as you know.
Yeah, when I said that's a choice, what I was implying was, and all choices come with consequences, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So, you know, I've always said this in IT, for example, nothing of any consequence gets done in a 40-hour work week. Okay. At some point, you may get by for a while on a project with 40-hour work weeks. Okay. But at some point, you're going to hit a hump that you need to get over, and that's going to require some overtime. And that is the only way you're going to get that thing from development into production. You know, this is Pagakis's rule of software entropy, right? Systems that are not in production tend never to get into production, and systems that are in production tend never to come out. All right. So if you're going to overcome that entropy, there's only one way you're going to do it. You're going to have to put in more than 40 hours at some point. You know, Indira Gandhi, I'm going to do this quote from memory, but she had a great quote about this. And she said something along the lines of, my grandfather once told me that there are two kinds of people in the world, people that are willing to work hard and people that are not willing to work hard. He recommended that I align myself with that first group because there's less competition there.
Yeah, sounds like something she would have said. Yeah, but I'm also looking at another angle. I meet a lot of Indian immigrants out here. When they come in here, I try to help them settle down when they get referred to me. Because accommodation is the first challenge they have, and then networking for jobs. So I look at these young people, they are chartered accountants, husband and wife, and sometimes with a small kid. And when I was in India, and I think even now it is like that, life is very hectic. People work for almost 6 days a week. And even on the weekends, they might be that one day they might still be electronically responding to stuff. And they work 10 hours. And they have a commute of an hour and a half or whatever. So that they find the life in North America to be much more cushy because not only is the Canadian dollar bigger than the Indian rupee, even though the accommodation might be small, but the amenities and infrastructure is world class. And they were working really, really hard in India. And however hard you work them here, it's still not as hard as what they used to do in India, right? So now what is that doing to, I'm not talking about local Canadians, I'm talking about second generation Indian Canadians whose parents came here and the kids were born here, they got educated here, and they are like, oh, I'm going to go for a vacation and this and that. And then they are going to compete with these hungry, mean and thirsty guys who are willing to take lesser salary, willing to work longer hours, and willing to prove it by delivering stuff like Sam, you said, your boss said that you wanted it on Monday, sit there and get it done. They're willing to do that. So that's going to create a whole lot of problem for people who are from economies, especially in the G7, who have social security net. When they are going to encounter competition coming from countries where there is no social security net, if you don't work, you don't eat. If you get sick, you don't get medicine. You have to work for all those things. And when you work like real hard. So when they come out here, it's like they're on steroids, right? But their next generation invariably gets into the affluent society mode. And by the time when the child is growing up, they have the car, they have the game and other things which the parents never had. And the parents want to give it to the children because they never had it. Along with that goes away the first generation financial ethic of not spending more than what you earn, with which they built the property and their net worth. For example, East Europeans who come to Canada, they are very frugal. And they save up the money. Even if they work as janitors, they save up the money, and within a matter of 3 years they have at least one property, and they're renting out the basement. And based on that, they build a chain of property. And their kids, when they grow up, they are Canadian kids, and they speak with a Canadian accent. They think Canadian, and they and their parents are in two different worlds. They don't understand each other. So we're going to face all those things. I know I veered off away from ChatGPT.
No, you haven't. I think a lot of it is if chat, and this is a big if in my mind, if something like ChatGPT can fulfill the hype that's surrounding it right now. I don't know if you know anything about Gartner Group, but they have this curve kind of a thing, and you know,
bell curve.
And if the hype proves out, and not a lot of technologies do prove out, the implications are tremendous in this. I don't know if anybody can actually think through what exactly the net implications are. I mean, when Apple announced the iPhone, you know, at first I looked at it and it was like, okay, it's an iPod with a phone, okay, but it had and has grown into tremendous societal implications. Where would TikTok be without a cell phone? You know, that kind of a thing. I keep wondering about ChatGPT kind of thing and where it will actually end up. I tend to have a little more negative of it than positive because I'm retired. I'm not going to see the help it's doing at work, but I can see the negative it will have. And what you were just talking about, Raj, is true south of the border as well as north of the border. When you talk to people, once they've gone from the first generation to the second or the third generation, it's basically, I'm not going to put in the 30-hour week. The 30-hour weekend to get something done.
That played into the gig economy, right? That played into the gig economy. By the way, you have some extra time, go and drive a cab and get some money, or deliver some pizza on your free time, get some money, and we'll get by.
So, you know, I don't necessarily know that attitude is really linked to what generation you're from. As far as when your parents emigrated to these shores. I'm third generation Greek. Okay.
But you got a good grounding.
I worked my butt off. Okay. And here's the thing though. The interesting thing is I was very different when I first came into the industry than I am now. All right. When I first came in, I was pretty happy-go-lucky. I was in a rock band, you know, and I was really kind of more interested in that than I was in my career. You know, this was really more like a job that quite frankly, I could quite easily do, so and pay decent money. So, you know, life was good, you know, and at some point, it became a career and I got serious about it. And that's when things changed for me. And I came to the realization that, you know, the only job security that there really is anymore is the value you bring to your employer and being aligned with projects that matter to the company. Okay. So I would always try to position myself that I was working on things that mattered to the company and that I could bring value to. But, you know, I never hesitated to put in, you know, once I made the realization that, no, you know what, this is a career, it's not just a job. I realized that, you know what, I'm going to have to put in whatever hours I need to put in to get this job done, because at the end of the day, it's about moving the rock, right? You know, I had an interesting conversation. I just thought about this now with a manager that came to a company that I worked for from a company that I used to work for. And this guy and I never really got along. And all of a sudden now I find myself reporting to him. And there was a project that I worked on that through no fault of mine didn't move forward. And when review time came, you know, he gave me kind of bad reviews on it. And I said, Joe, I'm using a different name here. Joe, I did a lot of work on that project. I don't see how you could rate me like this. And he said, you did no work on that project. And I said, I beg your pardon. I put in a lot of hours. He goes, John, you put in a lot of effort. You didn't do a lot of work. Look up the definition of work. Work is effort times distance. That is the classical formula for work. He goes, you put in a lot of effort, but you didn't get any distance. And anything times zero is zero. You did no work. That stayed with me the rest of my career. And I realized that, you know, at the end of the day, it is about results.
Yeah. I think
Right.
I think when ChatGPT comes, I think it's going to make things a bit easier. Like for when you got the epiphany, you got it because there was a stable channel of work. There was no big interruption. As Kathy Wood says now, you got robotics coming up, you got ChatGPT coming up, you have got space technology coming up, you got genomics coming up, and there's a very good potential that all of them can merge together. And if a generation doesn't have the epiphany quickly enough, they are not likely to be able to get a hold and the opportunities to pursue that. So I think
I
that
think it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly. The rewards of winning and the disincentives to losing, right? If there's one thing industry's good about, that is rewarding winners and sort of shrugging their shoulders and saying, oh, well, to losers, right? So I think people are fairly smart and fairly sensitive to this, right?
Yeah.
So I think even if we do something like, you know, universal basic income, you know, that's not going to provide enough money to live a lavish lifestyle. So I think there'll still be plenty of incentive there to say, all right, this is great. At least I don't have to worry about starving. Okay. But how do I get that penthouse? You know, that's really what I'm shooting for.
I
You know,
hope it
I'll
leads
tell you,
to a renaissance of arts and all those things.
I worked with a young guy, you know, in his late 20s. And, you know, he really just kind of looks like this quiet. He's very quiet. If you didn't talk to him, you would not find out at all how brilliant he is, because he's not unlike me, he's not the kind that's going to wave it in your face, right? Not that I'm all that brilliant, but but this guy, man, you want to talk about hiding your light under a bushel. But I learned, because we sat next to each other at work, that this guy always had some sort of a side hustle going. Okay. And it was always really a brilliant side hustle. Not all of them worked, but if one didn't work, he threw it away and went on to the next one, you know? and I think this kid's got a great career ahead of him.
Yeah. I think we all have to be agile going forward. Fortunately for us, I think we lived through a really good time in human history in terms of the kind of food we got to eat, the kind of society that we got when we were growing up. There was, you know, love and affection everywhere, in the sense that you could leave a child in a train and your neighbor could take them to the next town and all that. Those days are gone. But
Yeah.
the science and technology is promising a very bright future. with our discovery of everything. So with that, I think we would probably end the session today and hope
Yep.
that ChatGPT provides us a brighter future. Thanks, John, and thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Raj.
So
Take
long.
care.
See you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Well, friends, I suddenly realized how much time had elapsed, so I had to abruptly end the chat. But we are coming back again with another episode. It's going to be purely ChatGPT, and John is going to demonstrate how he can manage to create a good quality software just giving instruction to ChatGPT. Well, friend, that's all for today. Bye for now. I'll catch up with you later.